Hello everyone. If you are new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do it, thanks. By the way, I also have a Luffy fan fiction channel. If you are interested, the link is in the description.
Kitsune of Las Noches by Brown Phantom. Some ninja just get one sensei, and if they're lucky they can get two. Naruto is given 10, a group called the Espada. Armed with training and skills beyond Konoha's understanding, he will take the world by storm. But whose side is he really on? I don't own anything. Adios.
Somewhere along Konoha's massive wall, while Gaara and Naruto were occupied. Preparations to defend Konoha, in case of a sudden attack by Shukaku, were nearly completed when a sudden surge of energy emanated from the current location of the Suna Jinchuriki. This power was not, however, from the Biju. This was all the more obvious when the reactions from Naruto's fracciones are taken into account. "DDD, did you JJ just sense that? Django?" Tiriran blurted out, somewhat intimidated whenever she sensed this familiar Ryotsu. "We all sense it, Tiriran. Just shut up." Django replied back, trying to sound collected, but like his partner, he was also unnerved by the energy they were sensing. Kakashi, who was aiding the evacuation of the remaining villagers, had also sensed the massive energy and was concerned by the reaction of the two Arankars. "Did something happen to Naruto, Django-san?" "That's not it at all, Kakashi-san. Naruto-sama is alright," mostly Master Arankar said. "You don't sound too convincing," Kakashi replied. "That's because, well, how do I say it without causing panic? Naruto-sama has just..." Django struggled to explain, then sighed as if giving up on putting it nicely. "Naruto-sama has just unleashed the full power of his Zanpakuto." Kakashi's visible eye widened in shock. "You mean, all of it?" Naruto had told Kakashi, like he did with Jiraiya and the Sandaime, of the nature of his blade, shortly after passing the belt test so as to prevent any misunderstandings should he actually release the Zanpakuto during a mission. And it was because of the law regarding Kyuubi that he had remained silent on it. Django gave him no response, which only made Kakashi feel worse. "Is this act really that dangerous?" he asked. Even though he, or anyone else in Konoha, hadn't seen the full release of Kurama, he could tell, from his talks with the blonde ninja and from what he has seen of his abilities, that Naruto really appeared to be in control of the tailed beast. "If you're the enemy, then yes. If not, there's no danger to you, however," Django said, and Kakashi got the sense that just talking about this made the two fracciones' skin crawl. "Let's just put it this way, Tiriran and I saw Naruto-sama's full release once, and that, Kakashi-san, was one time too many." Kakashi shuddered at this, wondering how powerful this release was if even Naruto's followers were scared of it. Several miles outside of Konoha, Shinobi World. "Devastate, Kurama. Furu Henkin, Suidan." Naruto said as his blade, minus the red wrappings, disintegrated. As the wrappings began to envelop the young ninja, they began to glow. This time, however, the wrappings changed color, becoming orange as they were enveloping Naruto. An orange light soon emanated from the ninja as his Ryotsu suddenly exploded. As the dust cleared, Naruto stood before his opponent, his appearance changed. He was now covered by an yellowish-orange Ryotsu shroud, with the Ryotsu appearing in the form of flickering flames, which was parted down the middle and opened into a large full-length coat. Underneath this coat there was a black undergarment with Magatama beads near his collar and, curiously enough, an orange Ryotsu chest plate with a design that appeared similar to Naruto's gauntlets and spalders. Throughout the shroud numerous dark circles, representing the altered seal, could be seen. The cloak also emanated 9 tail-like appendages, each one having a single line running down their centers, that flowed from the cloak's backside. Naruto's eyes had slit pupils and his whiskers became much thicker, while his hair now spiked up towards the front into 2 horn-like pieces. Unaware of what he was dealing with, the Suna shinobi prepared to unleash the Shukaku. "Feigning sleep jutsu," Gaara said as he made a hand sign. After a self-inflicted jutsu, the redhead was then rendered unconscious while the irises of his Biju transformation changed from light brown to yellow, signifying that Shukaku had taken over his host. This became more obvious when the tanuki itself spoke. "I'm finally out," Shukaku said in a tone that gave Naruto the impression that he was akin to an angry drunk. "And looks like I'm in luck today. The first thing I get to kill is you, Kurama." Naruto simply looked on, completely unfazed by Shukaku's psychotic ranting. "If the human stays asleep for too long, his mental identity will be completely swallowed up by my psychopath of a brother. It will be as close to brain dead as you can get without dying, leaving him a blank slate for Shukaku to play with," Kurama explained to his host. "Then we'll just have to wake Gaara up fast," the whiskered blonde replied, having guessed that the exposed upper half of his opponent was the weak point. Lucky for him Gaara was so exposed, but surely even Shukaku knew that. Whether or not he did, Shukaku was more focused on an insatiable desire to kill Naruto and the 9-tailed fox of the tailed beasts. He swung his left arm at his target, but to his complete shock Naruto was able to block his arm with only one hand, an even greater feat considering the fact that Naruto had only been pushed a few feet back. What the hell? How can one human match me in strength like this? Shukaku roared, pressing on but not crushing the little human. Naruto raised his eyebrow at his opponent. Damn, I need to find some way to practice using with this release if Shukaku was able to get me to budge, even if only by a few feet. With Shukaku still in shock at having been blocked, Naruto manifested Kurama's head, or, to be more specific, a translucent version of his head that was still in Kurama's form. Naruto then had this head bite off Shukaku's left arm before he had the manifested head dissipate. Shukaku was, naturally, enraged at this. "You'll pay for that," the Tanuki roared before he opened his mouth and began generating a Bijudama. After Shukaku quickly finishing the buildup of chakra, he then fired his attack, but due to his rage, the chakra orb went way off course, heading towards Konoha. Thankfully for everyone in the village, Naruto was already 10 steps ahead of Shukaku and had already prepared a response, if the fact that he had his right index finger pointed in the path of the Bijudama was anything to go by. Sero Iskuras, Naruto said as a beam of pitch-black Ryotsu with an orange outline shot out of his finger. The Sero intercepted Shukaku's attack, with the resulting explosion leveling a 70-mile diameter patch of the forest near they were fighting in and replacing it with a 40-mile crater. "Well, you potentially just killed who knows how many innocent animals, but your village is untouched for now," Kurama remarked to the young Uzumaki. Shukaku was, once again, taken by surprise by this display of power and, as such, had failed to notice that his opponent was right in front of him until he was standing before Gaara's exposed upper body. With the increase in Naruto's speed while in this form, which was at least 20 times greater than the speed of his Zenso release, he wouldn't have needed a distraction as Shukaku, or anyone else in the shinobi world, could read his movements at these speeds. Using the lapse in Shukaku's reaction time, Naruto threw a right cross that made contact with Gaara's face. He had intentionally thrown a very soft punch, because at this speed and with his strength increased to an unfathomable level, anything short of the softest punch would have obliterated Gaara's head. The blow that was given was still strong enough to achieve its intended purpose, to wake Gaara up, though the injuries he sustained were still severe. "No, I just got out," Shukaku screamed as his body crumbled with his consciousness and chakra going back into the seal, without Gaara's there to reinforce the giant sand construct. "I'll get you for this Kuram." At that point his jaw fell off. Sadly, shortly after Shukaku's rage was gone, Gaara's took its place. "I'll kill you for this outrage, Naruto Uzumaki," Gaara hissed, aware and attempting to keep the sand colossus up. "Be forever." Gaara realized that Naruto was suddenly inches from his face. In his shock Gaara almost failed to hear Naruto's next sentence. "This fight's over, Gaara," Naruto said just as he struck Gaara's right chest with a palm strike. With Gaara's body no longer able to support the Shukaku transformation, the manifestation of the one-tailed Tanuki crumbled away, leaving nothing but the biggest sand dune to ever be near the village hidden in the leaves. Gaara fell to the ground, the mound of sand softening his collision as Naruto gently descended to the ground. When he finally reached the ground, Naruto resealed his Zanpakuto, making the sword rematerialize and the red wrappings return to the hilt, with his Ryotsu shroud dissipated. He then headed to where Gaara had fallen, face first, too weakened by his fight with Naruto to even stand, though his injuries were nowhere near as severe as those that Naruto inflicted on Neji. The Suna shinobi turned his head and saw Naruto walking towards him. For the first time in years, he was filled with fear at what he thought would be done to him. "Stay away from me. I will not let you end my existence," Gaara called out. The fact was there was nothing he could do in his weakened condition to defend himself from the Konoha shinobi. Even his ability to defend himself with his sand wasn't working right now, like the sand itself was afraid of its life. When the whiskered blonde stood in front of him, Gaara braced himself for his end, certain he was going to die, and forced to recognize how despite his eagerness to cause death, in the end he was just as scared to die as anyone else. A few minutes passed, but instead of any pain or growing sensation of getting colder, he felt better. Greatly confused, Gaara opened his eyes and saw Naruto on one knee, healing him. "Why, Uzumaki, why would you heal an enemy?" Gaara asked, speechless. Naruto shook his head before he replied. "Didn't you hear me when I spoke to you at the stadium? I know what you've been through. The hate-filled stares, the loneliness, the fact that your fellow villages try to define your very existence and then deny it regardless. The pain from all these things and more, it still hurts no matter where it takes place. I've gone through that hell of being alone," Naruto calmly said to Gaara as he finished healing him. He didn't fully heal the sand ninja, however, in order to make sure he could not attack him, but he did get rid of Gaara's almost life-threatening injuries. Done, Naruto stood up and helped Gaara do the same. The redhead was uncomfortable with the direct contact, but was in no shape to refuse it. "Like you, I wanted that to stop. I wanted to know that I had value," Naruto continued. "It wasn't enough to tell myself that. Like you, I just wanted someone else to say it so I could hear it." I think at some point we both got tired of waiting, but unlike you I didn't give up completely. I chose to earn their approval if that's what it took. Make them proud of my accomplishments. You can do that too, you know. Who would be proud of what I've done? Gaara asked. Who says you have to keep being a constant killer, Gaara? The only thing stopping you from changing is yourself. I'm not saying you'll get the results you want right away, but if you give up on making bonds just because it's not easy, you don't deserve to have any in the first place. Gaara was left speechless by this. When they finally reached the main gate of Konoha, this time it was Naruto's turn to be surprised. It looked like the entire village, not just the Sandaime, Jiraiya, Kakashi, and his fracciones, were there waiting for him. After spotting the blonde ninja, the crowd gave, to Naruto's surprise, a hero's welcome. Whoa, I knew I would change the villagers' view someday, but I never could have imagined that it would happen this soon, Naruto thought, but nonetheless he smiled as he got to the gate, with Gaara in tow. Right away Hinata broke from the crowd and ran up to him, throwing her arms around him in a tight hug. Mostly to reassure herself he was really okay after heading off to what even Junin would consider a suicide mission. Did I scare you, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked, putting his free arm around her. She looked at him with a frown. Hell yes you did. I want to tell you to never do that again. Then her expression softened. But we both know you can't promise that, so instead, let's just say you owe me something. Naruto chuckled and nodded, then turned to face the approaching Sandaime Hokage. I guess it's fair to say that these Chunin exams are over. Indeed, Naruto, but not before you made a clear impression on the judges, Sarutobi said. Naruto took a few moments before he understood what the third meant to say. So I'm a Chunin now? Are you kidding? I'm going to get complaints tomorrow for sure just for not making you Chunin. If I didn't make you Chunin I'd be too busy dealing with complaints to even die, Sarutobi said with a joking smile. Naruto returned it. I'm so glad to hear I'm being promoted to give you less paperwork, old man. He of course knew this was just friendly banter between themselves. In all seriousness, I promise you that I won't let Konoha down, and I need to ask you for a couple of things. Sarutobi nodded. What's that? First, are Sasuke and Sakura alright? I don't see them here. Sasuke is taking Sakura to medic care while getting some treatment himself. Probably some stitches at worst for him, the Hokage answered. Good. Second, could you get a medic for Gaara? On it, though honestly we had medics ready for you instead. Sarutobi answered as some medic nins came up with a stretcher. They put Gaara on it instead of the blonde they suspected would need it more. As Gaara was taken away, Temari, Kankuro, and Baki came out of the crowd and went after him. Temari, Kankuro, Baki-sensei. I'm sorry, Gaara said softly, like he was tired. This caught the three shinobi completely by surprise. It's okay, Gaara, Kankuro stammered out after some silence. Temari could only look towards the direction that they came from. I don't know what you said to him or why, but thank you, Naruto Uzumaki. She said to herself as she and her brothers arrived at the hospital. She could tell that, in this one battle, something had changed in her brother. Something long overdue. Namikaze Estate, Konoha outskirts, several days later. Naruto, now a full-fledged Chunin, had said his farewells to Gaara and his siblings as they headed back to Suna half an hour ago, and now he was waiting for his fracciones at his house. They were often exploring the area in and around Konoha, so it took the messenger he sent several minutes just to locate the Arancars. He would have preferred to have Haku there as well to explain the situation to her too, but she was on a mission in the Land of Frost and was not going to return for a few weeks. After another 10 minutes of waiting, Django arrived, followed by Tirarin. What's wrong, Naruto-sama? Tirarin asked as Naruto looked at both of them with a very serious expression on his face. You two remember what I told you a few days ago? Naruto asked his fracciones. It didn't take the Arancars very long to figure out what Naruto was referring to. So they are finally making their move? Django asked. Naruto sighed a bit before he nodded. I just got word from Jiraiya-san this morning. It seems the Akatsuki have begun the hunt for the Biju. They're probably getting unnerved by the news of my exploits over the past few months, and it's beginning to show in their actions. That said, however, I do not want any chances taken with these shinobi. Though they won't be much of a threat for any of us, the other Konoha shinobi are a different matter entirely. Naruto knew that he could handle the Akatsuki himself and, unless he catches wind of an attack on a fellow jinchuriki, he was willing to wait for them to come to him since the only thing they would find is a swift death. Naruto was much more concerned for the safety of Konoha and wanted to make sure that the crossfire. If you guys encounter them at any time, I want you to proceed with caution if you engage them. Understood? Naruto said as they replied in the affirmative before they left. Now that that's been settled, it's time I deal with the second fire for today. Naruto thought to himself as he flash-stepped to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower, Konoha. Current time. Are you sure you want to do that, Naruto? What if it has the opposite effect of what you want? He could very well, Sarutobi said before Naruto interrupted him. If that happens, then I'll do what has to be done. The undeniable fact is he will find out the truth someday, much like how I did with the stuff you didn't tell me, the whiskered blonde said. Sad but true. It seems you can bury the truth, but you're only delaying the inevitable, Sarutobi thought to himself. With that said, if he is not told now, Itachi will tell him, or at least part of it. If Sasuke is told now, he may be able to take it better, and actually grasp the goal his brother wanted him to have. Right now Sasuke is aware his own goal is incomplete, but he still wants his brother dead. If he tell him, he might get the answers he's looking for, Naruto said, to which Sarutobi nodded in reply. Very well then, Naruto. If you think that is the best course of action, then I'll allow it. You however will be the one to tell him, and only him, in my office and under my watch. Now go find him. Naruto nodded before he set out. Konoha training grounds. A few moments later, Sasuke, having obtained his Mangekyo Sharingan during his battle with Gaara, was now training with Kakashi to get a handle on the dojutsu. It was very difficult since Sasuke, like any other Mangekyo wielder, had to be careful when using it. It would have been more difficult, however, had Kakashi not revealed that he had the dojutsu and knew of its special jutsus. Sasuke was surprised by this but, despite his curiosity, had decided not to ask his sensei how he had acquired the dojutsu yet for various reasons. As Sasuke was attempting to master the Tsukuyomi, the Mangekyo Sharingan jutsu that he had the greatest difficulty using, he noticed that Kakashi had turned his attention elsewhere. Hey, aren't you supposed to be? Sasuke asked, irritated by his sensei's lack of focus, until he saw Naruto walk up to their team leader and whisper something into his ear. Kakashi nodded and returned his attention to Sasuke once Naruto left. We're done for today, Sasuke. Hokage-sama needs you see him in his office ASAP, Kakashi said. While Sasuke was undoubtedly annoyed by this, he knew that if the Sandaime was requesting his presence he must have something important that he needs to discuss with him. He deactivated his dojutsu then headed to the office. Hokage's office. 5 minutes later, Sasuke arrived at the office of the Hokage, only mildly surprised to see that Naruto was standing outside the door. The whiskered blonde had his arms crossed and leaned his back against the wall, like he had been waiting for quite some time. You took your sweet time getting here, Naruto said rather bluntly. Not everyone can move at the speeds you reach, Naruto. Anyway, what is this about? Sasuke asked, only for Naruto to shake his head. You'll find out inside, Naruto said as he opened the door to the office and entered, motioning Sasuke to follow him. The Uchiha entered the room and saw the Sandaime seated behind his desk, while Naruto took a seat facing the desk. Sasuke waved off and offered to take an empty seat, suspecting for some reason he would be standing the entire time anyways. I'm pretty sure you have an idea why you have been called here, Sarutobi asked, to which Sasuke nodded. Just remember that everything said in this room cannot be talked about outside, for any reason. Sasuke showed no reaction that implicated that he could not keep his mouth shut, so Sarutobi continued. We'll start with a little history regarding the Kyuubi attack. Now this might not seem important at first, but the rest won't make sense without it. The thing to note is that the Kyuubi did not appear here on a whim. The fox was led here by an unknown Uchiha. Sasuke looked surprised and confused, but didn't say anything. According to what the Yondaime was able to get across before he died, this Uchiha wore a mask with only his Sharingan showing, and he was able to take control of the Kyuubi in a way not unlike Madara Uchiha did. And, as you can imagine, he had it attack Konoha. With all due respect, Hokage-sama, what does this have to do with me? Or the death of my clan, as I'm assuming you're trying to explain? Sasuke asked bluntly. Naruto was, not surprisingly, annoyed by Sasuke's impatience, even if he didn't show it. I'm getting there, Sasuke, so just hear me out, Sarutobi said. Now then, where was I? Oh yeah, the unknown Uchiha. This man actually has a lot to do with the massacre of your clan, Sasuke. It could be said it never would have happened if this masked man hadn't been there that night. Now the young Uchiha looked surprised. This guy somehow is what led Itachi to going crazy. But how? You see, the Kyuubi actually did the attack, but it was the masked man who made it happen in the first place. In a way it was the exact same with your brother. Itachi did the actual dirty work. But the idea was not his, Naruto said for the Hokage's behalf. Shocked, it took a minute or so for Sasuke to actually respond to Naruto's statement. What are you talking about? Naruto looked at the Uchiha dead in the eye. People didn't take the Kyuubi attack very well, he started, disliking having to refer to Kurama by title rather than name. However, the Kitsune did not like his name being given out casually, so the blonde shinobi would respect his wishes, if only to avoid getting into an argument with the Biju. Naturally they wanted something, or someone, to blame and hold accountable for it. Kind of like with Neji and how he blamed Hinata-chan and the main branch of Hyuga clan, among other things, for his suffering. Did someone blame the Uchiha clan? Sasuke asked, starting to connect the dots in his head. Naruto nodded. The clan wasn't the only thing blamed for the attack, but they were indeed considered suspects. People remembered the stories of Madara and wondered if it had happened again. But the clan didn't. Sasuke instinctively started, halting when he remembered the claim about the masked man. I mean, it was one man's fault, not the entire clan's. Again Sasuke, think back to Neji. Sometimes the desire for a scapegoat is stronger than common sense. Did you know for my whole life people blamed me for what Kyuubi did just because I was born on the same day and had these whiskers? Sasuke conceded his point, and while he was confused on how anyone could blame someone who was simply born on the same day as a disaster for the disaster, he wanted to keep on the current topic. My clan wouldn't have just stayed back and done nothing about this. That's true, in fact, they didn't. Sarutobi interjected. Your clan did try to convince others the rumors were untrue, but it didn't convince everyone. Some people in the village already distrusted the Uchiha and weren't about to just take their word for it. Why would they already distrust the Uchiha? Don't they know who we are? Sasuke asked, getting a little offended. He had always been led to believe his clan was loved and respected by all. That was part of why he let his heritage go to his head in the past. Sasuke, pretend for a moment you are not an Uchiha and will never have a Sharingan, Sarutobi suggested. Your clan wasn't exactly the most interacting of clans, preferring to keep to themselves. If you saw someone who seemed to go out of their way to not interact with you, wouldn't you think they had something to hide? My clan had nothing to hide. They had nothing to do with it, Sasuke insisted. I'm not saying they did, since I know they didn't. I'm just saying to other people it probably looked like they did, Sarutobi claimed. Your clan felt about as offended as you do right now. Naruto continued. They were outraged at how distrusting the rest of Konoha was to them, finding it so easy to believe the worst about them for the least amount of reason. Personally, I can sympathize. People held me responsible for the Kyuubi simply because my presence reminded them her reasons. And how did this lead to Itachi doing what he did? Sasuke asked. Well, here's where it's going to get difficult for you. Naruto started. At some point before your brother did what he did, your father started getting ideas. Ideas of a coup d'etat against Konoha. Sasuke felt his stomach flip to hear this, but then he got angry. My father would never do that, take that back. Naruto looked as intimidated by the Uchiha as he had been the first time the two spoke to each other. Before I go any further, think about this Sasuke. You were 7 years old when he died. How well did you really know him? Well enough to know he wouldn't do that, Sasuke defended. He had always held Fugaku in a high regard, the highest in fact. If Sasuke had just one motive to get stronger beyond killing Itachi, it was to make his late father finally proud of him. So the last thing he wanted was to hear someone tell him his father was not the hero he remembered him as. In that case, you're right. Which is why we're certain it wasn't entirely his idea. Wait, what? Sasuke asked, thrown off by this. I only have circumstantial evidence for this at best, but we think the masked man who manipulated Kyuubi also played on your father's anger and subtlety convinced him that taking over the village would solve his problems with it. But, why would this masked man do that? Sasuke asked. Naruto shrugged. We don't know. That's one reason why this is such a circumstantial theory. We have no solid proof that he ever met your father and we can only speculate at his motives in all this. Anyway, it is confirmed your clan did start to get ready for an actual coup d'etat. But Hokage-sama here was informed, by Itachi no less, on what your clan was getting into. The last Uchiha turned to the Sandaime who nodded. Once I found out, I tried arranging negotiations with your father. If he did what he was intending, it would have sparked a civil war within the village. One that our enemies would probably spring on the chance to use against us, and worst case scenario spark the fourth shinobi war. Don't you think you might be overreacting? Sasuke asked. I am the Hokage Sasuke. It's my duty to make sure such an outcome does not happen. Negotiations with your father went sour. He mainly said if we wanted to avoid the coup the best thing I could do was retire and appoint him the Godem. Why didn't you? Sasuke asked. It was hard to tell if he was simply asking, or accusing the Hokage or something. It's true I am old and a replacement would have been worth considering, but pretend for a moment you are the Hokage Sasuke. If someone told you that you were unfit for the job and you should just give it to them or else they will take it by force, would you be willing to hand it over? Sasuke blinked. I see your point. So what did? He paused and showed an expression of horror for a moment. You didn't. No, he didn't, Naruto said, figuring out what conclusion Sasuke was jumping to. Your father knew he had lost the element of surprise and so he had to postpone the coup for a more appropriate time. But he had not given up on the idea. Itachi had been brought in to keep the Hokage aware of the situation, spying on the clan if you will. Itachi at some point came into contact with the masked man. Sarutobi added. He couldn't learn much, but he knew he needed to get into a position where he could. He needed to get where the masked man could trust him, so Itachi could spy on him as well for us. Why didn't he just attack him? Itachi could kill my entire clan in one night. How could he not stand up to one guy in a mask? Sasuke asked. Sasuke, have you ever actually thought about that night? I mean beyond the mere fact that it happened? Naruto asked. I think about it every day. Sasuke claimed. Have you ever tried to figure out just how Itachi was able to do what he did? Naruto asked. Sasuke only showed a confused expression, so the whiskered blonde continued. Didn't you ever wonder how he could do it without anyone managing to get to an alarm and call for help? Or without Anbu patrolling the area noticing the dead bodies or even hearing the screams? Surely such a massacre was not silent or clean. What about a genjutsu? Sasuke considered, realizing that Naruto had a point. Just how did Itachi succeed in killing a whole clan without getting caught? In all the years since it happened, Sasuke had never asked himself that, only focusing on the fact it did happen. Because of this lack of thought, his young naive mind had built up Itachi to be some kind of monster more than he already was. Some kind of godly overpowered ninja who could do anything because he was elite even by Uchiha standards. That in turn sparked Sasuke's obsession with becoming the same, so he'd stand a chance against Itachi. Genjutsus are a lot less effective when your enemy outnumbers you, and if nothing else Itachi was outnumbered that night. Naruto pointed out. And if you go with the idea that he cast a genjutsu over the compound to keep people away, there are anbu trained to spot such things including silencing barriers. Anything meant to keep people away over so large an area would have definitely been noticed. But, if all this is true, then that means Konoha was in on the massacre, and let him do it. Sasuke concluded, feeling his stomach do another flip. No, not Konoha, the masked man. Sarutobi quickly said, knowing right now Sasuke was questioning a lot more than his goals. When it came clear that the Uchiha were going to revolt no matter what, Itachi had been tasked with stopping the leaders of this revolt. Cut off the head and the body will die, so to speak. So no, he wasn't ordered to, as they say, kill them all and let Kami-sama sort it all. In any case, I ordered him to not make a move until negotiations had completely broken down, as I was determined not to let this end in bloodshed if I could. You still ordered him to kill my father, Sasuke said bitterly. No, I knew we were asking a lot of Itachi, so I told him if he chose to detain the leaders instead, render them helpless but alive, that would be acceptable and, in fact, was preferable. The fact that so many died tells us one of two things happened. Either the leaders attacked first and Itachi had to defend himself, or the masked man got to them first. Either way, no one outside the Uchiha knew that anything was going on. Sasuke did not know how to react to that. I knew your brother Sasuke, and I know that even if he could kill off his entire clan, children included, he wouldn't. Sarutobi told the troubled boy. Whoever did the killing and why, only Itachi himself can tell us that now. But had he done nothing, there's a good chance none of us including you would still be alive. Itachi did what he did to make sure you still had a future where you could be a hero, by condemning himself to forever be seen as a villain. It is a noble sacrifice if nothing else. The last Uchiha looked down, slightly trembling and still silent. No one wanted to press him to respond. The fact that Sasuke had managed to listen to everything when he could have simply brushed it off in favor of his own paradigm was nothing short of miraculous. A sign that Naruto had in fact been getting through to him all this time. So does this mean, my brother? Sasuke finally asked before he was interrupted by Naruto. Yes. Naruto calmly replied, his expression, which had been set in a serious tone, softened when he saw that his teammate was crying, having been shaken up by what he has just heard. He left you alive not to punish or torment you. He did it because he wanted you to actually have a full life. Make friends, find a girl to love, have kids, and make the Uchiha better than it was before and, ultimately, to continue protecting Konoha. That is what he really wanted you to do, Sasuke. He left you alive so you could live, not kill yourself for him. After he stopped crying, Sasuke faced Naruto and Sarutobi. I need some time to collect my thoughts. Sasuke said BF the office. Naruto was about to do the same until Sarutobi stopped him. Wait Naruto, I have an important mission for you that'll require you to work with Jiraiya. I need to discuss it with you before you go anywhere. Really? And what would that be, old man? Naruto asked as he raised an eyebrow. About that, have a seat, Naruto. Sarutobi said, knowing that even Naruto would get taken aback by what he was about to say. Jinchuriki crater, 50 miles outside of Konoha, a week later. The site of Naruto's battle with Gaara, more specifically the crater created by the collision between Shukaku's Bijudama and Naruto's release-enhanced Sero Ascuras, had occurred over a layer of solid bedrock 100 yards under the forest that once stood. Because the crater was 4 miles at its deepest point, it was fair to say that, just like with the Valley of the End, this battle had left a scar on the earth itself. It was no wonder that the place already was a named landmark, of sorts, and that the place already had an almost sacred reverence to it. A lot of people visited the crater, mostly out of curiosity, including 2 figures who were standing on the south side of the crater. Their curiosity, however, was for much more ominous reasons. So this is the battlefield between the Ichibi and Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. Huh? Very scary stuff there. Imagine the devastation that would have been if this was Konoha. One of the figures said, to which the other simply glared at him, though his eyes were hidden by the round straw hats that both men were wearing. You should be more concerned about our mission, Kisame. Our objective: managed to defeat Orochimaru, the Ichibi, and your fellow swordsman. The other man warned. Ah, yes, poor Zabuza. He never knew what he was dealing with until it was too late. Kisame chided until he noted the tone of his companion's voice. Are you sure you won't be getting too sentimental on this mission, Itachi? Absolutely, Itachi replied as they both set off for Konoha to find their target. They were unaware that a certain green-haired girl was following them from a distance. Unnamed rest stop, 20 miles west of Konohagakure. Alright, we know where the boy is going and what route he's likely to take. Assuming he's only going a little faster than average shonen speed, we should catch up to him this night. Tomorrow at the latest, just to cover any margin of error. Itachi said while enjoying some of his favorite flavor of tea at a small rest stop people going in and out of Konoha often frequented. I'm surprised how easy it was to get this intel. Kisame commented, helping himself to some Konoha brand mochi. People in your old haunt couldn't shut up about the boy. At least they were speaking positively. Itachi noted. Not that it matters, but at least this way we have a better idea of what to expect. In my experience, there's more honesty to praise than insult. In that case, I'm almost excited to see how much of a fight the boy puts up, Kisame said with a grin. Itachi arched an eyebrow. Almost, well, I can't kill him and it will be a 2-against-1 fight. How much fun can I expect? Outside the rest stop, someone was watching the two cloaked men from the trees, impatiently waiting for their backup to arrive. Are they in there? Django asked as he appeared beside Tiraran via Sonido. Yep, and they should be leaving in a few minutes, Tiraran replied. What took you so long? I called for you 10 minutes ago. I warned some of the ninja in Konoha in case the thread decided to head into the village. Not to mention they can maneuver to cut off the target's escape if we give them enough time. Django replied, keeping his eyes on the S-rank missing nins. Moments later, the two Akatsuki members had left the small rest stop and continued their search for Naruto. Rather than attack right away, the Fracciones stealthfully followed them for a few miles in order for the inevitable conflict to happen in a more appropriate location away from Konoha. This should be enough, Tiraran said before releasing some of her ryotsu in order to get their target's attention. Well, I guess they've finally decided to roll out the welcome wagon for you, Itachi? Why don't you two come out of hid? Kisame said as he turned around to face the pursuers. He stopped speaking, however, when he saw that the pursuers were already out in the open. Itachi, having gotten some intel on what to expect of their target, realized who these two were the moment he got a good look at their opponents. That attire. So you're the two followers of Naruto Uzumaki, the jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. So you know who we are. Django said as he and Tiraran both unsheathed their zanpakutos. You should know, then, with whom you're dealing with, Itachi Uchiha. It would appear that our reputations precede us, Kisame said, taking off his straw hat. Itachi chose to do the same. I guess they do, fish stick. Tiraran said, not knowing that Kisame did not take kindly to such remarks. The Kiri missing nin fixed his glare right at the female Arrancar who, as a further insult to Kisame, had bracelets on both of her wrists that were made out of teeth and claws of 10 or so different predatory animals, including a prominent shark's tooth on the left bracelet. There was a reason that she wore those bracelets, though Kisame obviously wasn't aware of this. You better watch what you say, little girl, or you might just find your head as Samahata's newest chew toy. Kisame warned as he gripped the hilt of the still-wrapped Samahata. Tiraran simply looked at the missing nin with an innocent expression. Really, it looks like your sword would make a better soup than a weapon. How could it ever hurt anyone? Tiraran said in a playful tone. That little insult was more than Kisame's pride could handle even with Itachi next to him. Why don't I show you, you little gaki, Kisame hissed as the bandages that were wrapped around Samahata, or at least, the bandages that were still bound to the sword, came off, revealing all the blue scales that formed the blade of the infamous weapon. The demon of the hidden mist charged towards the 28th Arrancar and, once he had closed the distance between them, made a vertical chop aimed at the Tiraran's head. To the missing nin's shock, however, he found that his target had somehow vanished without him even noticing, resulting in Samahata striking the ground. Quick little devil, he muttered, placing his sword on his shoulder while attempting to locate his target. If you were trying to hit me with that attack, then you need to work on your aim. You could get yourself killed otherwise, she teased. Kisame looked behind his back, where Tiraran's voice was coming from, to find the tip of her blade now pointing at the Akatsuki member's back. Strangely enough, Kisame's irritated expression was now gone, having been replaced with a face that screamed excitement. You're actually better than I thought, Gaki. I have the feeling that I'll have to go all out if I want to defeat you, he said before he managed to swing his sword and hit her free arm with it. The impact made her remove her sword from him and Kisame took the opportunity to create some distance between himself and the numero. Tiraran simply smiled at this. You're willing to go all out for me? If that's the case, then I should at least be nice enough to do the same. What? There's no damage to her? Kisame asked himself, seeing no sign of damage on her arm at all. As if his shredding weapon hadn't even touched her. And if that wasn't strange enough, Samahata was giving him a slight whimper of hungry. It didn't take any chakra from her? Tiraran, to Kisame's shock, then stuck her blade to the ground before she then got on her right knee and closed her left hand into a fist, save for her middle and index fingers which she placed on the ground. Kisame didn't realize that he should have stopped Tiriran at that moment as the Arrancar was about to release her Zanpakuto. "Hit your mark, Cazadora, A.N. Spanish for huntress," Tiriran said before a large column of emerald green Ryotsu with a black outline emanated around her. Elsewhere, while Tiriran and Kisame were fighting, their respective partners had already begun their battle. Itachi already had his Mangekyo ready in an attempt to end the conflict quickly, but unfortunately for him Django was able to counter every attack thrown at him. Not only that, he was combining his Pesquisa and Sonito moves to detect and dodge everything Itachi was using. "You seem unusually educated in fighting off Uchiha," Itachi noted, seeing that the Arrancar kept his eyes closed. "And you seem unusually weak for someone who supposedly killed hundreds of people in a few hours," Django remarked, relying on his experience in sparring with Sasuke to give him the advantage here. "This man, he's not trying to defeat me. He's dodging all my attacks without delivering any of his own, and making sure my attention is focused on him. He's trying to keep me away from Naruto and wear me down before I could encounter him," Itachi concluded. "Does he know my true intentions and is playing along, or is he unaware and this is just part of his strategy to eliminate me?" "Sero," Django said, finally attacking the missing nin. The attack got Itachi out of his current train of thought and he dodged it. This wasn't impossible because Django still had his eyes closed, thus affecting his aim. Before he had time to counter, Django had gotten behind him and slashed at him with his Zanpakuto. It took everything he had to deflect the strike with a palm kunai, making it so only the Akatsuki rogue took any damage instead of his body. "Times like these I'm grateful to be a prodigy," he thought to himself, moving to put some distance between the two. "You're indeed a very strong shinobi to have survived this battle for so long despite your condition, Uchiha-san," Django said with honest praise. Like his opponent, he was not one for being arrogant in battle. Itachi, despite his exhaustion, remained unfazed. "You're not that bad yourself, though I'm more surprised by the fact that you show no real concern over your friend. Had Appy been forced to use a great amount of her power?" Django smirked. "I'm not worried. She's not using that power because your associate is forcing her to. She's doing it because she wants to, simple as that. She's a free spirit in almost every way, even in battle. She never shows any restraint in using her abilities unless either myself or Naruto-sama are within her sight. Also, she's actually stronger than I am, so if anyone is in any real danger it's your partner." Itachi hid his surprise. If she's only using full power against Kisame out of habit, and if she is truly stronger than this man, can we succeed even if I wasn't planning to fail this kidnapping in the first place? Itachi at that moment decided that, with the battles going downhill for both him and Kisame and having already learned where Naruto was, they had to fall back. Fighting the two Fracciones would hurt them more than anything, and he had already conversed with Danzo to ensure the old Warhawk was keeping his word to leave Sasuke alone. The only left Itachi had left to do was botch his official mission and report back once he had done so. Unfortunately for Itachi he couldn't tell the Fraccione any of this and, as a result, the Arrancar had no intention of letting him get away. Django and Itachi were so focused on each other's movements that they hadn't noticed that someone else had been closing in on their location until he made himself known. "It's been a long time, Itachi." Both combatants turned their attention to the source of the voice which was familiar to them both. Naturally, the newcomer was none other than Sasuke. "Sasuke," Itachi thought with a great deal of sadness even if he didn't show it. Django was rather surprised by this development and allowed himself to open his eyes to look at the younger Uchiha. Well, this arrival certainly is unexpected, and can go sour very quickly given what Naruto-sama said about the boy's relation to Itachi here. Sasuke turned his attention from his brother to the Fraccione. "Django, I need to confront him myself, fall back." To Sasuke's surprise Django agreed to do it. Like Sakura, Sasuke was forced to learn to achieve some kind of positive relation with the Fracciones due to the fact all four of them were going to interact with Naruto. Sadly Sasuke was not naturally gifted in the ways of dealing with people, and he had quickly given the Arrancars no reason to like him when they first met. Sasuke had improved vastly due to him realizing that Naruto wasn't some kind of loser or pushover, but there was still tension between him and the blonde's devoted followers. The only reason that Django had agreed to Sasuke's request was because Naruto had warned both him and Tiriran of the possibility that if Itachi ever came for the whiskered blonde Sasuke was highly likely to get involved. And if this should occur Naruto had told his Fracciones to honor Sasuke's request to confront his brother alone should he make such a request and to only intervene should his teammate's life be in danger. But they only had to do this the one time. Should this somehow happen a second time, they were fully allowed to deny Sasuke. After Django had disappeared and gotten far enough that he couldn't hear either him or Itachi, the young Uchiha turned to face his brother. If this encounter had occurred a few months prior Sasuke would have undoubtedly attacked his older brother without hesitation or even most rational though. But with everything that has gone on in that time, Sasuke was simply unsure of what to do. "I'm certain that Naruto had not been lying to me when he told me about the fate of his clan. But there is still a chance that Naruto might have been wrong. Like Hokage-sama said, The only one who really knows what happened is Itachi himself. And the only way I can confirm anything is to confront him right now. Itachi had, like Django, noticed the signs of his brother's internal conflict, but he was unaware of both the circumstances behind Sasuke's hesitation and his growth as a shinobi. So naturally, he fell into his role as the heartless slaughterer of his own family, pushing his brother's psyche to its breaking point so he could secretly have the Uchiha clan's name redeemed with his own death. I let you live so that you can have a chance for revenge, for a chance to surpass me, and this is how you repay me, by giving yourself away and hesitating to strike when I had my guard down? You're a disappointment, Sas. You can drop the act, Itachi. Naruto told me everything, Sasuke interrupted. Itachi's only visible reaction was raising an eyebrow, but internally he suddenly had a sinking feeling in his gut. Everything? What do you mean by that? Current time? As the column of spiritual pressure continued to envelop Terurin, her opponent stood back shocked at this display of power. Such power, yet it feels so different from chakra. Is she using some kind of alternative that Samahata can't eat? Kisame thought to himself, having noticed earlier that this girl's energy was far too light and potent to be chakra. A point that was given further credence by the fact Samahata was unable to ingest any of that energy. Kisame snapped out of his thoughts when he saw that the column of energy suddenly dissipated. The swordsman was then taken further aback when, from out of nowhere, a massive tree suddenly sprouted from the ground where the female numero was kneeling. The tree then enveloped Terurin before it finished growing. The whole spectacle had gone on for 3 minutes by this time and, unbeknownst to Kisame, was about to end. After a few seconds, a hole emerged from the side of the tree facing Kisame, from which Terurin came out, her appearance having completely changed. Terurin now wore a lightweight moss green leather sleeveless vest, while a short-sleeved shirt that was made out of some sort of short black fur was seen underneath. Said shirt extended to just above her knees and was covered at the hip by a small apron the same color as her vest. The headband-like fragment of her mask was now an actual headband that was now black in color, while her green hair, which was originally waist-length, was currently reaching to her knees, while 2 locks framed the side of her face and reached to above her breasts. The female Arankar also had a necklace made out of what appeared to be the various claws and fangs that were seen on her bracelets, both of which were now gone, while her leggings had been replaced by short-length black fur boots. Her right boot has a sheath strapped to it that held an all-black and very large hunting knife, while a similar knife, though green in color, was sheathed and placed on a belt strapped to her waist at the apron. In addition to the knives, a green recurved bow with black horsehair attached to both ends was slung on her back. Kisame just stood there for a few moments, in complete shock at what he was seeing. It was like he was looking at a real goddess of the hunt before him. He snapped out of the awe when his opponent drew out her bow. I don't know what she's planning to do, but I have a feeling that I don't want to find out. Kisame thought to himself as he dashed towards a very large lake that was nearby. Oh yeah, smart move, fish face. Like no one's ever tried getting distance from me. Terurin remarked sarcastically, pulling back the string of her bow, forming a lime green energy arrow with a fiery tip in the process. Colmillo del Jaguar. She released the bowstring and sent the arrow flying at speeds greater than what a normal arrow should be capable of. Kisame only had 30 seconds to respond, which he did by forming a few hand seals before he held both of his hands up. When he finished the short sequence of hand signs, some of the water from the lake, which was now about 50 or so yards away from his present location, surged towards the ex-Kirinen. When the water reached him, it enveloped him, created a giant shark around him. Water style. Super Shark Bomb Jutsu. He thrust both of his hands forward, which sent the water shark barreling towards the arrow and away from him. Despite the impressive display of power, Kisame was well aware of the fact that his attack was a gamble. This jutsu, for all the chakra used for it, normally drew most of its power from the chakra of the enemy's techniques, meaning the stronger the jutsu that hit it, the more potent the resulting explosion. This characteristic, which normally made the jutsu unstoppable, was a non-factor in this scenario, as Terurin's arrow was made of Ryukyu, and as such it couldn't be absorbed by Kisame's jutsu. If this doesn't work, I just hope I can redirect her attack, Kisame thought. The attacks collided 10 seconds after they had been launched. Terurin's Colmillo skewered the shark-like entity that was Kisame's jutsu, penetrating deep. At that moment, the Akatsuki member had the shark change the direction of its surge, moving it to his right, just seconds before it was forcefully dispersed by the arrow. The change in direction was small, no more than a few feet, due to how quickly the shark had been destroyed after it had its course altered. Luckily for Kisame, though, the change was more than enough to cause the arrow to miss him by a few inches. That arrow kept flying through the air for at least 5 miles before it finally detonated against a tree. The explosion that occurred was, if Kisame could have seen it, a mile high and was a magnificent shade of green that slightly masked its awesome power. The power behind the explosion was so great that the shockwave it generated could actually be felt 20 miles away, as it flattened the 3 miles of forest that was in the vicinity of the explosion. What Kisame didn't realize was that Terurin, in her usual haste when using the Colmillo, had used only a tenth of the attack's true power. If the arrow had been launched at full power, it would have actually been twice as powerful as Ulquiorra's Lanza del Relampago. In other words, Kitsune had unknowingly dodged multiple bullets. The power generated by the colmillo was, ironically, also strong enough to send Kitsune flying for several yards, before he plunged into the very lake that Terurin had tried to prevent the swordsman from reaching. That was crazy. If that attack actually had hit me, the damage would have struck her too, Kitsune thought under the surface. Because he was underwater, the shark-like ninja couldn't see Terurin's neck glow the same color as her arrow. The necklace of fangs and claws that she wore contained many of Terurin's different abilities, the most relevant of these in this situation being a sword protective talisman that would protect her from most attacks, including all of her own attacks. While there were drawbacks to the necklace's protective capabilities, none of the foes Terurin had faced so far were able to force her to the point that such a weakness could be exploited. Kitsune was no exception to this pattern. Once he got back on land and on his feet, Kitsune performed another sequence of hand signs. Water style, 1,000 hungry sharks jutsu. A massive wall of water formed like a brewing tidal wave, one that transformed into 1,000 sharks, surging towards Terurin. Oh no, what am I going to do? She asked herself, not sounding the least bit worried, especially given how she simply pointed her bow at the center of this water jutsu before pulling back the bowstring. I know, I'll do this. Docile del Bosque. Another green arrow was created, this one more of a seafoam green compared to the colmillo arrow. But when this arrow was at full power, it was as equal to one of Ulquiorra's Luz de la Luna javelins. This difference in power is seen in the form of the arrow itself, as the fiery point that the other arrow had was noticeably absent now. Firepower was not the greatest asset of this attack, which Kitsune was about to find out the hard way. The Francione quickly sent the arrow flying. To Kisame's horror, this arrow began to split apart into more arrows of equal size. The number of arrows kept growing and growing until, after a few seconds, there were at 5,000 arrows barreling straight towards the sharks. It didn't take long before both attacks collided with. As the arrows began colliding with the water sharks, it became clear that there were simply too many arrows for Kisame's jutsu to withstand. And this girl considers a pre-pub boy her superior? Kitsune thought as he observed the obliteration of one of his signature methods. The wave of sharks was easily broken, leaving around 4,000 arrows to continue on their path. These arrows effectively blocked out the skies above Kitsune before the barrage of projectiles fell upon the former member of the 7 swordsmen of the Hidden Mist. The arrows began exploding as the of the lake and the nearby shore. The thousands of explosions that rocked the area lasted for several minutes as the water in the lake was literally being pushed out by the explosions, until all the water was gone. As the explosions winded down, Terurin looked at the scene of devastation with a bit of surprise in her face, but not because of the results of her attack. You're actually very strong, Fishface, if you managed to survive that attack, Terurin said as a single figure appeared in the middle of the column of smoke and steam that had arisen as a result of her attack. Kitsune, sure enough, was the one standing on the edge of what used to be a lake. Although alive, the Akatsuki member was severely wounded after having been caught in the blast of at least 3 of Terurin's arrows. But who would have counted in that situation? Besides being wounded, he now looked like an anthropomorphic shark. She's really good. If I hadn't merged with Samahata and dove underwater when I did, I would be dead right now, Kitsune thought to himself as he considered his options, which were clearly limited. I can't keep fighting. The Yondaime Mizukage didn't fight as dangerously as her. I could retreat, but Itachi's still fighting the other guy, so that's out of the question. Itachi's the only one who knows how to find the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. I could try to tag team her with Itachi, but if this girl's partner is as good as she is, I'll be right back where I started. How'd I get an edge here? Not sure what to do, Terurin asked in a semi-taunting manner. You know you could just surrender, right? I'm sure the TNI people in Naruto's village wouldn't mind having a new friend around. Or was it TNA? Note to self. Remember to ask Naruto-sama what the difference between TNI and TNA are. Terurin thought to herself as she aimed her bow for Kisame's heart. One of her failing points was that she wasn't really good when it came to acronyms. Kitsune scoffed at the numero's suggestion. Do you really think that I would actually agree to do something like that? You may be a powerful little girl, but you're apparently still as naive as one, Gaki. Terurin got steamed by Kisame's name-calling, just as annoyed by her opponent's nickname for her as he was by the nickname that she had given him. My name is not Gaki, it's Terurin, so at least remember it, Fishface, she yelled in a childish manner. Looks like her power exceeds her maturity, or she's gotten it in her head that she doesn't need to be serious in a fight. Kitsune thought, looking for a personality weakness he could exploit. And my name isn't Fishface. It's Kitsune Hoshigaki. He paused for a sigh. Now that we've given proper introductions, why don't we continue our battle already? Terurin nodded with a smile. If you want to keep fighting, then I'm game. Just don't complain if I kill you. Believe me, I'll know if you do. Paying that warning little mind, Kitsune prepared himself for a continuation of this fight. When suddenly Itachi appeared before the battered half-shark shinobi. We have to go now, Kitsune, Itachi said, It was obvious, however, that the Uchiha was already going to forcibly remove himself and his partner from the battle whether the swordsman agreed to this or not. "Okay, didn't see that coming," Tiraran commented with some surprise. Using the small opportunity available, Itachi threw a couple of smoke bombs with preset timers on at her. The timers had been activated a few minutes prior and, as a result, exploded the moment that the bombs rolled next to a confused Tiraran. Tiraran was soon enveloped by a large cloud of smoke which she was stuck in for a few moments. By the time that the Arrancar managed to get out of the cloud, Itachi and Kitsune had both fled. Well, that's not cool. Before Tiraran could chase after the two missing Ninjago appeared behind her. "Damn, looks like I just missed your battle. I guess these two are very quick on their feet when it comes to retreating. Not so much when going on the offense," Tiraran said as she resealed her Zanpakuto, returning to her normal appearance. Though she tried to hide it, Django knew that something was on Tiraran's mind. "You don't have to worry about Naruto-sama, Tiraran. You know that their chances of actually beating him are even less than those of them defeating either of us, so he'll okay." After seeing that, Tiraran's expression lightened up a little. "Come on, we should return to Konoha per Naruto-sama's orders. Just in case other members of their group are heading there." "Alright," Tiraran said. "By the way, Django, do you know what the difference between T and I and T and A are?" "Yes, but I'm sure this woman named Anko Mitarashi doesn't," he commented. Back in the Hidden Leaf village, a woman sneezed just before she was about to bite into some dango. A few minutes later, Itachi was shocked at what he had just heard, even if his expression didn't show it, apart from the moment before he killed his parents, where his mother told him that they would always be proud of him regardless of what he did, and his father wasn't so proud. He had never been at such a loss for words. Sasuke had been told the truth of what had happened. All of it. Everything that Itachi had hoped to hide from his little brother, every secret that he had hoped would die with him, was now firmly stored in Sasuke's young mind. The fact that it was Naruto of all people who had told Sasuke all of this made Itachi wonder where Minato's son had been for the past 7 years and, of equal importance, what other secrets he might be aware of. Itachi shook off these thoughts as he heard Sasuke question him. Is what Naruto said true, Itachi? Itachi didn't reply for a few minutes, unsure of how he should respond to his little brother. Exposed or not, he was still determined to have his clan redeemed with his own death, so he had to choose his words carefully since lying to his brother would have been a pointless action. While Itachi took his time considering a perfect response, Sasuke was quickly losing whatever patience he had brought with him. "If that's how you're going to be, then I'll just force an answer out of you," Sasuke declared, getting into his favored fighting stance. The younger Uchiha had hoped that Itachi would give him an answer willingly, but, knowing the chances of that happening were slim, he was more than willing to fight his older brother if that was what it took. Itachi raised an eyebrow at Sasuke's warning. "You're going to force me to answer? Do you honestly believe that you could defeat me at your current level?" Despite appearing to be unmoved by what Sasuke just said, the missing nin realized there something was changing within his brother. What the young Uchiha said next would make the nature of the change much more apparent. "Realistically, my chances aren't that good. I won't know for sure, however," Sasuke said as he activated his Mangekyo Sharingan. "Until I take you on, Itachi." Sasuke finished rather defiantly, knowing he shouldn't be constantly using the Mangekyo, but fighting Itachi without it would have been a fool's fight, and he damn well knew it. Itachi barely heard the last part of his brother's sentence as he was too focused on his brother's eyes, and for good reason. The Mangekyo Sharingan. When did he activate that, and, more importantly, how? Itachi thought to himself as he felt an upsurge in the surrounding atmospheric pressure which the Uchiha, as a wielder of the upgraded Dujutsu himself, recognized. The Amaterasu. So he's already developing some skill with his eyes. He's gotten much stronger. Is this perhaps because of your influence, Naruto Uzumaki? Itachi thought to himself as he countered with his own Amaterasu. The two waves of black flames collided with each other and, being the same jutsu and of similar strength, the attacks basically smacked into each other and were unable to progress any further. After a few minutes of what was essentially a match of willpower, the black flames from both of the brothers dispersed, the non-stop use of the technique taking its toll on the two Uchihas. The eyes of both of them began to bleed a bit, one of the harsh side effects caused by overusing the Mangekyo Sharingan. Of the two, Itachi was the more physically exhausted, thanks to also having to deal with Django earlier. Sasuke was better but less used to dealing with the repercussions of his eyes, so he was little better off by comparison. He placed his hands on his eyes, suffering a pulse of excruciating pain that lasted for a few seconds. Sasuke, not having drained as much of his chakra as his brother, prepared to use the Amaterasu one more time once the pain subsided, but stopped when he heard Itachi's voice. "I guess I was wrong in not believing in you, Sasuke." Sasuke arched an eyebrow. "What are you talking about, Itachi?" Itachi's expression was one that his younger brother couldn't identify. Possibly resignation or the like to the current situation. "I can no longer deny it. What Naruto has told you is the truth." The younger Uchiha, having finally gotten the confirmation he had been seeking, stood there and didn't say anything for several minutes. He deactivated his Mangekyo Sharingan before he finally spoke. Then why, Itachi? Tell me why. Why did you lie to me? Why did you leave me alive? With all that I've gone through, you might as well have just killed me. He hadn't realized it, but Sasuke started crying, washing away the blood on his cheeks. Itachi suddenly had feelings guilt and sadness gnawing at his heart at the sight of his brother's tears. The missing nin had always known his little brother was in great pain due to his actions on that night, but seeing that pain with his own eyes was affecting the older brother in him. The part that always felt regret when he had to disappoint a much younger Sasuke to do his job, only it was a million times more painful. There were a lot of reasons, Itachi said under his breath. Sasuke looked up at his older brother, his tears having stopped, as he continued to speak. For one thing, you were just a little boy back then with no idea of what was happening around you, so taking your life would have been a pointless death. That can't be it. Babies were killed that night. You're telling me their deaths weren't pointless? Sasuke objected. Even if Naruto knew that other people were involved in the clan and he told Sasuke, which is a strong possibility at this point, it's better that I not tell him that others were involved. If so, then my death might just be one of many at Sasuke's hands and lead to a future where he'll only live for revenge, not restoring the clan. The older Uchiha though before he continued. The most important reason was because you're my little brother. I've never thought of you in another way. If I had killed you, I had too many burdens to carry back then, and the burden that taking your life would have placed on me would have been impossible for me to carry. Itachi. Sasuke muttered to himself in shock, but before he could say more, Itachi continued his explanation. There is one more reason why I didn't kill you, one that involves a promise that I made to someone very close to me. As Naruto told you, I wanted to be judged for my crimes by another Uchiha so that our clan's name would be redeemed. Sasuke didn't register that last part of his brother's explanation for a minute or so. When he finally did comprehend those words, however, the young Sasuke clenched his fist in anger. You tried to do everything by yourself even though there were people who could have helped you, including me. Why didn't you tell me all this from the start? Why couldn't you just trust me? I thought that you said we were brothers. So why did you go it alone? Sasuke asked. Itachi waited for a few seconds before he replied. I didn't want to put other people in danger needlessly, and I thought that I could handle these things on my own. He paused to release a sigh. It's only now, after seeing how much you've grown, that I realized that I've made a terrible mistake in judgment. Maybe you're right about working with others. Maybe if the both of us had worked together we could have saved our clan and village without a war breaking out. But you were a child at that time and I had no way of knowing how you'd react to what you're saying if I had offered. Just the same, however, you must understand the time for that has already passed. I can never return to Konoha now. Itachi then walked towards Sasuke, who thought the former was about to do some kind of trick and thus got into a defensive stance. Despite that, Itachi simply kept walking towards Sasuke until they were around 10 feet apart, at which point he stopped. The two brothers just stood there, not a word spoken or a muscle moved. They simply locked eyes with each other as if they were trying to understand each other. Chi finally ended the silence. I can understand if you've lost the desire to kill me, Sasuke. But I must ask that you still come for me when you've gotten strong enough, Itachi said as if it were a simple request. Sasuke's response, after all the things that had learned, was not surprising in the least to his older brother. You think now that I know the truth I'm still considering the idea of killing you? Do you honestly believe that I'm so single-minded that even after learning what happened and why that I still want you to die? Before he could finish, Itachi got closer to him and placed his hands on his brother's shoulders. I'm not asking you that you avenge anything now. I'm asking that you please do this to redeem the Uchiha name. How can you recreate the Uchiha if you're not strong enough to withstand another threat as powerful as myself? Just please. Please promise me that you will honor my request, not as a fellow Uchiha, but as my brother. Itachi's voice had never sounded more serious than it did right then and there. As Sasuke tried to make sense of what his brother was asking him, he remembered what Naruto had told him about the things that Itachi had gone through just before the massacre. When the rest of your clan was preparing to perform a coup d'état against Konoha, Itachi was forced to make an impossible choice. He could either side with his clan and as a result risk losing you, his precious brother, and his home to a war that he was sure would soon engulf Land of Fire, or he could have your life spared and Konoha spared from the flames of war at the cost of the blood of the rest of the Uchiha clan. He had to weigh you, Konoha, and the Uchiha on a set of scales and, in the end, he chose the first two. Itachi might have looked like he wanted to make himself the villain that had only killed his clan for the sake of power, but what he truly wanted was to make sure that no one else in Konoha had to suffer the horrors of war that he had experienced when he was a child. That was the last thing that Naruto had told Sasuke back then, but it was only now that the full meaning of those words became clear to Sasuke. Taking this revelation to heart, he sighed before he finally responded to his brother's request, as he knew he would truly regret what he was about to do. Alright then, Itachi. If that's what you really want, then I guess I have no choice but to do what you're asking. But you have to agree to do something for me, as a sort of repayment for years of mental angst. Sasuke stated. Itachi took his hands off the younger Uchiha's shoulders, within reason. I know that you're only pretending to go after Naruto right now. That said, the rest of that group you're in is still after him for real. You have to promise that no matter what happens you will not harm Naruto. I'm surprised to see you requesting I not harm a friend, considering how indifferent you were for a time. Itachi thought out loud, not seeing any problem with the request since it was something he already intended to do. I wouldn't call him a friend, mostly because I've never done anything with him outside of work. This isn't about friendship, this is about respect and gratitude. I owe him enough to make an effort to not let someone else take him down. Itachi lightly smirked. Plus you want to test yourself against him as well as me. We both inspire and challenge you to do your best. You said it, not me. Sasuke pointed out. Well, I will do what I can, but I can only do so much without getting the other suspicious. If it ever looks like he's in legitimate danger, I will send word ahead of time. The missing nin stated, looking off for a bit. Now I better get back to my partner before he gets suspicious. We'll meet again, Sasuke, but pardon me if I say I hope not too soon. With that, the older Uchiha departed. Now I understand what you were trying to tell, Naruto. Sasuke said to himself with a sigh before he went back to the village. Shukuba town, 40 miles west of Konoha, meanwhile. It had been a week since the Sandaime had told Naruto and Jiraiya of their mission. The research that Jiraiya was doing meant that the two didn't set off for their mission until a few hours before Itachi and Kitsune infiltrated Konoha, hence why they were still only a half-day's walk, for a shinobi at least, from Konoha. Jiraiya could tell that his godson was feeling rather uneasy and was in deep thought since they left Konoha, if the fact that the young Chunin hadn't said much of anything since that time was any indication of that. As the two shinobi went to find a place to stay for the night, Jiraiya thought it would fun to mess with Naruto's worries. What are you, the guy who defeated Orochimaru, so worried about? Jiraiya said to his godson with a smug tone. So he was a bit surprised when Naruto gave him a, "What do you think, Sherlock?" expression. Let's see. The old man decides to suddenly retire because the situations with Orochimaru and Shukaku made him think that he's no longer capable of being the Hokage. And since he refused to take his place, he has to pick Tsunade, a gambling addict with a bad temper, a fear of the sight of blood despite being a medic nin, and who believes that those who either were Hokage, dad included, as well as those who want to become Hokage are all fools. I think that's more than enough to make me worry if she's the only option we have left. A sweat drop appeared behind Jiraiya's head. Since when are you cynical? Did someone tell you I'm a perpetual happy-go-lucky kid? I'm cynical when there's nothing to enjoy and optimistic when there's something to hope for. And right now, I don't see why I should be optimistic about this woman. Jiraiya arched an eyebrow. Tell me, kid, is this really about Tsunade's flaws, or are you just having a hard time with the Sandaime stepping down and you just don't want anyone to replace him? The whiskered blonde closed his eyes, admitting that he was having a hard time accepting the old man's decision to retire. But the way he saw it, his complaints about Tsunade were not unreasonable. The woman might be great in her own field, but what I've heard her described as tells me she's not good at dealing with things getting difficult. Why would you trust her to lead your village if she already reached her breaking point? Naruto inquired. Jiraiya crossed his arms. Tsunade's personality may be a bit different from the Hokages that came before her, but she is more than capable of taking on the position. There is a reason why Sarutobi-sensei agreed to have her become Hokage. Yeah, that reason being you said no even though you're capable of doing the job, and the only person in the village who wants the job is as old as the old man himself. Not to mention he's bound to have more than a few selfish reasons for still wanting the job at his age, even if we ignore the fact that he'd plunge the world into a world war at the drop of a hat. The new Chunin replied. True, but there's more to it than that. If you doubt Sarutobi-sensei, go ask him yourself when we get back. Naruto only shook his head. Whatever, I just hope you and the old man are right about this or Konoha is officially fucked. He muttered under his breath as he and Jiraiya entered a local inn.